The buried bomb. For more than half a century, the silence beneath our feet has been hiding something monstrous. A half-forgotten legacy sealed in metal coffins. 200,000 barrels of radioactive waste, sleeping in the dark waiting to die. Or perhaps, waiting to awaken. It began in an era of power and paranoia, the Cold War. A time when men split atoms with the same pride they once split continents. Nations were racing to command the invisible fire of the universe, and in their hunger for dominance, they left behind mountains of poison. Uranium slag, reactor sludge, contaminated soil, and irradiated byproducts, all of it lethal for tens of thousands of years. And the question no one wanted to face: where do we put it? The answer was quick, simple, and devastating. Out of sight, out of mind. Steel barrels were filled to the brim with radioactive debris and sealed shut, then loaded onto ships or trucks headed for nowhere. Some were buried beneath deserts where no one lived. Others were dumped in deep oceans, where light could not reach and conscience could not follow. They were the children of human ambition, born from science, buried by denial. But steel has a memory and a lifespan. Today, those barrels, once symbols of control, are corroding, splitting open, leaking death into the soil, the rivers, and the veins of the planet itself. Divers exploring certain coastal sites have filmed eerie graveyards beneath the sea, rusted drums yawning open, their innards glowing faintly in the dark, like wounds that never healed. In those places, the water tastes metallic. The fish are gone. The sea hums with radiation no one dares to measure aloud. Onshore, radiation detectors planted quietly near old dumping grounds tell their own silent story. They spike without warning. They hum in the night. The readings never fall to zero. And those spikes, small, almost invisible on paper, carry a message: the seal between us and our mistakes is breaking. But there's something worse than slow decay. Something the nuclear scientists of the 1970s warned about, and then buried in classified archives. If too many of these containers collapse close together, the concentrated radioactive materials could trigger uncontrolled chemical chain reactions. The result wouldn't be a neat, single explosion like a nuclear bomb. It would be a rolling sequence of detonations. Waves of superheated reactions releasing toxic particles into the air, sea, and soil all at once. Imagine the sea boiling in spots. Imagine invisible storms of dust riding the wind across oceans. Imagine crops dying not from fire, but from invisible death drifting down like ash. This is not a movie plot. It's a risk buried beneath treaties and time. 200,000 barrels. Enough radioactive matter to make Chernobyl look like a spark. Enough poison to rewrite ecosystems. Some of these dump sites are frighteningly close to cities, hidden under coastal waters or sealed beneath forgotten military lands. Others lie beneath seas that feed global fisheries. Strontium, cesium, plutonium. These are not just scientific words, they are ghosts that enter your body, your blood, your bones. Once inside, they never leave. When governments buried the barrels, they thought they were burying a problem. Instead, they buried a fuse. And the fuse is burning quietly. The most chilling part of this story is not the radiation itself, it's the secrecy. Many of the original records are missing. Some maps were lost during government reshuffles, others misplaced during transitions of power. In some countries, entire dump sites were scrubbed from official archives. What remains are whispers from retired engineers and divers, and grainy black and white photos showing ships lowering barrels into the sea under moonlight. To the world, those images were forgotten relics of a past age. But to scientists now uncovering the truth, they are the evidence of a crime against the future. Recently, teams using sonar mapping technology discovered clusters of long, forgotten barrels scattered across the ocean floor. Some are stacked neatly like cargo, others lie cracked open, their contents blooming like dark flowers into the currents. One diver described the site as ghost fleet of poison. Silent, motionless, but still deadly. The water around them glows faintly in the camera light, not from any visible source, but from radiation dancing invisibly through every molecule. If even a fraction of those barrels collapsed together, the chemical reactions could turn local seas into zones of slow motion disaster. Radioactive dust could rise into the atmosphere, travel across borders, and settle thousands of miles away. In a matter of days, entire regions could see contaminated rainfall. Crops would fail. Rivers would carry poison to reservoirs. It would not be an event. It would be a spreading wound. No army could fight it. No city could flee from it. You can't see radiation. You can't smell it. But it watches you from every particle it touches. History has already given us its warnings. Chernobyl, where the forest still glows under the moonlight and wolves roam among abandoned towns. Fukushima, where the ocean carries isotopes that still linger across the Pacific. But those disasters were accidents, single points of failure. The buried barrels are not accidents, they are decisions. Deliberate, strategic, and convenient. A generation once said, "Let the future deal with it." Now the future has arrived, and it's looking back at us through rusted steel. The real terror lies in the quiet arithmetic of time. Each barrel was designed to last around 50 years. Many are already past that limit. Some have collapsed. Others are so fragile that divers can't touch them without risking a rupture. Every passing storm, earthquake, or ocean current worsens the odds. Every day the world delays, the pressure grows. Scientists have proposed drastic measures. One idea: constructing massive concrete sarcophagi around entire dump zones, sealing them under reinforced domes like the one that entombs Chernobyl's reactor. Another approach involves robotic retrieval. Autonomous drones capable of safely lifting the barrels from the seabed and transferring them to secure facilities. But both ideas face the same enemy: time. Every year of debate is another year of corrosion. And then there's politics. Some governments refuse to admit their role. Reopening the records would mean revealing military operations from the Cold War, implicating agencies, and reigniting blame. So the problem remains buried under bureaucracy, protected by silence. Meanwhile, the barrels age. Their contents shift. The earth waits. The ocean, however, keeps no secrets forever. In several coastal regions, radiation levels in fish have begun to rise subtly, but consistently. Not enough to trigger public alarms. Just enough to whisper that the contamination has already begun. In one incident off a northern European coast, fishermen pulled up a catch with a strange metallic smell. Their Geiger counter later revealed traces of cesium-137 far above normal. Officials called it an isolated anomaly. But isolation is a word the sea does not understand. When these stories surface, they vanish quickly, buried under news cycles or bureaucratic language. Contained event. Minimal environmental impact. Low-level contamination. Words designed to calm the public, not to reveal the truth. But truth does not rust. It waits, just like the barrels. The haunting question that now lingers is this: what happens when the containment fails entirely? When a storm cracks open a cluster of them, or an earthquake shifts the seabed? What happens when the poison escapes not drop by drop, but in a surge of fury born of neglect? The chain reaction would not respect borders. The fallout would ride the jet streams, coating lands far removed from the original sin. If that day comes, the world will remember that silence is not safety. It's just delay. And perhaps the cruelest irony of all, those barrels were never built to endure this long. They were meant to be temporary, short-term solutions until humanity could find something better. That better never came. Now, as time runs thin, the very materials meant to protect us are betraying us, corroding from within. So the question stands: will we confront our buried ghosts before they awaken? Will we seal them forever, or will we wait for them to burst free and remind us what arrogance costs? Because the truth is simple: the 200,000 barrels beneath our oceans and deserts are not relics of the past. They are messages. Each one says the same thing. We thought we could bury consequence. And consequence is knocking from below. The clock is still ticking. The city turned to glass. In the silent deserts of southern Pakistan, where the sun scorches the earth until even shadows fade, lies a mystery that challenges everything we know about history. Beneath layers of sand and time stands the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro, a place so advanced, so meticulously constructed, that archaeologists still struggle to explain it. And yet, it's not its architecture or its culture that keeps scientists awake at night. It's what happened to it, because something erased this city almost overnight. Something that left behind ruins melted into glass. For nearly a century, the story of Mohenjo-Daro has been told as one of archaeology's great triumphs. Discovered in 1922 by R.D. Banerjee, this 4,000-year-old metropolis was once part of the mighty Indus Valley civilization, an empire that rivaled ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia in sophistication. At its height, it was home to nearly 40,000 people. Its streets ran in perfect grid lines, its drainage system was centuries ahead of its time, and every house was built from uniform baked bricks. It had markets, granaries, public wells, and even a massive communal bath that seemed designed not merely for hygiene, but for ritual. It was a city that seemed born from order and logic, an urban miracle that spoke of mathematics, astronomy, and engineering far beyond what historians believed possible for the Bronze Age. Yet, for all its brilliance, Mohenjo-Daro fell into silence. No one knows why. No invasion scars its walls. No flood patterns bury its remains. Instead, it looks as if the city simply stopped. But the strangest clue is the one left in its ruins. Scattered across parts of the city are patches of vitrified stone, rock that has been melted and fused into glass by temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Celsius. This is not the result of fire or volcanic eruption. None exist in the region. It's the result of something far more violent, far more instantaneous, something capable of unleashing heat so intense it can fuse sand into glass in a fraction of a second. For decades, scholars dismissed this anomaly as coincidence or misunderstood geological activity. But as more evidence surfaced, the explanations began to fracture. Vitrification on this scale doesn't happen by accident. It happens through energy release, the kind that modern humans only achieved with nuclear technology. Somewhere in Mohenjo-Daro's final moments, a force beyond comprehension may have struck. Archaeologists unearthed human skeletons lying in the streets, over 40 of them, preserved in positions that tell a chilling story. Some were found face down, as if they were running. Others held hands. Their remains showed no signs of decay, no evidence of predation. It was as if time had stopped mid-breath. And what's more haunting, the radiation levels detected near these skeletons were reportedly higher than normal, though official studies remain sparse and controversial. Was this a sudden, localized catastrophe, or the echo of something older, an ancient power humanity once commanded and then forgot? The very soil of Mohenjo-Daro holds chemical signatures consistent with rapid, extreme heating. Some researchers have noted similarities to trinitit, the glassy residue left after modern nuclear explosions, such as the 1945 test in New Mexico. Even Robert Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb, was once asked if his 1945 detonation was the world's first. His cryptic reply, yes, in modern times, a joke, perhaps, or a hint that the idea of atomic fire was older than history itself. To understand the magnitude of what this means, we must look deeper into the city's design. Mohenjo-Daro's streets align perfectly with the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, suggesting astronomical awareness. Its sewage and water systems demonstrate hydraulic engineering rivaling that of 19th-century Europe. Each house had its own well and drainage channel, connected to larger underground systems. The precision is staggering, the layout deliberate, as if guided by architectural blueprints, an anachronism in the Bronze Age. Even the bricks were standardized, every one the same dimension, fired in high-temperature kilns. Such uniformity hints at centralized planning, mass production, and scientific knowledge far beyond what textbooks attribute to that era. And yet, despite all this progress, no one can read their writing. The Indus script remains undeciphered. Thousands of symbols carved into seals and pottery remain mute. An entire language lost, leaving only silence where meaning should be. How could a civilization so intelligent, so organized, vanish without a trace? The official explanation offered by archaeologists points to environmental collapse. Changes in the Indus River's course, flooding, and possible droughts may have forced people to abandon the city. It's plausible, but it does not explain the vitrified stones. It does not explain the suddenness of death. It does not explain the absence of skeletal injuries or struggle. To others, those who dare to question, the answer may lie beyond the boundaries of what science accepts. Some ancient texts from India, such as the Mahabharata, describe battles fought with weapons of light, capable of burning cities to ash. One passage describes a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe, a weapon that blazed like 1,000 suns. Another speaks of men whose bodies were burned beyond recognition, of hair and nails falling out, of food contaminated, of birds turning white. For decades, historians treated these as metaphors, but the descriptions align eerily with the effects of radiation sickness and nuclear fallout. Could these epics have preserved memories of a real event? A war waged with weapons that science would not rediscover for thousands of years? Skeptics argue no, myth is not evidence. But then, how do we explain the glass? If we strip away the myths, the facts remain chilling. A city abruptly abandoned, corpses lying unburied, mid-motion, rocks melted by unimaginable heat. No natural explanation sufficient to account for it all. If it wasn't a war, could it have been an accident? Perhaps an energy experiment gone wrong. One speculative theory suggests that the people of Mohenjo-Daro, or at least a small scientific elite among them, may have possessed knowledge of atomic manipulation, primitive yet potent. Perhaps they drew upon cosmic or natural radiation in ways we no longer understand. An experiment, intended to harness divine energy, spiraled beyond control. The result: annihilation. An entire city vaporized in seconds, leaving behind only fused sand and silence. Even the city's name carries an omen. In the local Sindhi language, Mohenjo-Daro means mound of the dead, a poetic coincidence, or an echo of collective memory passed down through millennia. The ruins stretch across 300 hectares, nearly the size of 500 football fields, and still only a fraction has been excavated. Beneath the dunes lie secrets still untouched, perhaps evidence that could confirm or destroy every theory we hold. Yet, even as the world digs deeper, the desert continues to reclaim it grain by grain. Among the artifacts found, the most haunting is the dancing girl, a bronze statuette, barely 5 inches tall, depicting a young woman frozen mid-pose, confident and timeless. Her expression is not one of fear or sorrow. It's one of grace, of pride, as though she belonged to a civilization that believed itself immortal. And perhaps, in its hubris, it unleashed something that reminded them they were not. Modern scientists still debate whether the vitrification could have been caused by meteor impacts or lightning storms. But no craters, no magnetic disturbances, and no known geological patterns support those theories. The absence of volcanic rock rules out natural heating. What remains is an open wound in history, a phenomenon without a cause. If the temperatures required to melt stone truly reached above 3,000 degrees, then what weapon or force could have done it? Some say alien intervention. Others say a civilization older than Egypt and Sumeria wielded energy far beyond what we imagine. Maybe both are wrong. Maybe what happened in Mohenjo-Daro is something our own future will repeat, a warning carved into sand by time itself. Because if ancient humanity once played with the power of the atom and destroyed itself, it means we are not pioneers. We are echoes, Consider this: if our modern world collapsed tomorrow, how long before our cities were reduced to dust? How long before our technology became myth? Within 10,000 years, almost all traces of our civilization would vanish, save for a few remnants buried in the earth: glass, concrete, and radiation. What would future archaeologists think if they found melted skyscrapers and skeletons frozen mid-step? Would they not ask the same question we now ask of Mohenjo-Daro? Perhaps history is cyclical. Perhaps civilization rises again and again, each time climbing toward light, each time falling into its own fire. Mohenjo-Daro stands as both evidence and warning, a city that mastered order, water, structure, and art, only to vanish in a burst of heat so fierce it rewrote its stones. The sand around it still holds fragments of fused glass, quiet witnesses to something we can neither fully prove nor fully dismiss. There's an unsettling poetry in the idea that our ancestors might have reached too far, burned too bright, and paid the price. The vitrified ruins whisper a single, terrible truth the earth remembers. Long after our empires fade, long after our inventions rot, the planet keeps its scars. Mohenjo-Daro may not just be an archaeological site. It may be a mirror, showing us what happens when power exceeds wisdom, when knowledge grows faster than understanding. Thousands of years separate us from those ancient builders. Yet, we stand in the same place they once did, staring at forces we barely control, confident that our creations will serve us forever. And just like them, we may be wrong, because one day, when the deserts reclaim our cities and the oceans rise above our monuments, someone else may walk among our ruins and find glass. They'll wonder what kind of gods we worshipped, what kind of fire we unleashed, and how quickly it consumed us. The story of Mohenjo-Daro isn't finished. It's repeating. The earth that burns from within. There are places on earth where the ground itself breathes fire. No volcano, no lightning strike, no god of war swinging his sword beneath the crust. Just the planet, burning slowly, endlessly, from wounds we opened and never closed. In the coal belts of the world, India's Jharia, China's Xinjiang, Pennsylvania's Centralia, the earth glows like a fevered patient. The soil is cracked, black, and hot to the touch. At night, the hills exhale smoke that smells of metal and sorrow. Flames dance quietly beneath the surface, invisible but alive. It's not mythology, it's not science fiction, it's coal, the ancient flesh of forests, ignited, and now consuming itself in an endless underground inferno. The story begins as most disasters do, with ambition. In the early 20th century, miners discovered vast seams of coal running like black rivers through the earth. The world was hungry for fuel, and coal was the heartbeat of progress. Entire towns were built atop these veins, proud, prosperous, glowing with electric light powered by the very fire they would one day fear. But coal mines are delicate creatures. They demand respect. They breathe air and swallow oxygen. They release gases that can suffocate a man in minutes. And when one spark finds the right pocket, the whole underground world awakens. In 1962, in a small town called Centralia, Pennsylvania, workers set fire to a trash pit that unknowingly connected to an abandoned mine shaft. No one noticed at first, just a bit of smoke rising from the ground. Then, weeks later, the fire reached the coal seams below. What followed was not an explosion, but a slow-motion apocalypse. The ground began to heat up. Smoke seeped through basements. Roads cracked and buckled. Trees turned to skeletons, their roots roasted from below. By the time scientists realized the scope of it, it was too late. Centralia became a ghost, a living town buried above a living fire. That fire still burns today, over 60 years later. But Centralia is just one spark in a global chain of infernos. In India's Jharia coalfields, fires have raged for more than a century. Villages sit atop smoldering earth. Children play where smoke seeps from the cracks. The sky, even on clear days, looks bruised. Locals tell stories of the ground suddenly collapsing, swallowing homes whole. The flames move underground like predators, feeding on oxygen through the fractures in rock. They can burn for decades, even centuries, traveling unseen. A slow, hungry ghost that feeds on what humanity left behind. Scientists say there are more than 200 known underground coal fires across the world. Some are as small as a house, others stretch for miles. In China's Xinjiang region, one fire is believed to have consumed over 3 million tons of coal per year for decades, enough to power a city. Satellite images show glowing veins under the desert, flickering faintly like embers under a blanket of sand. The heat distorts the air above the ground, creating ghostly mirages where the desert seems to shimmer with invisible life. No one can truly stop these fires. They burn too deep, too hot, too wide. To fight one, you must smother it, flood it with water, starve it of air, or bury it beneath layers of sand and clay. But every solution is temporary. The earth breathes, cracks, shifts, and air finds its way back in. Then the fire rises again. It's like trying to extinguish hell with a bucket. But what makes these fires truly terrifying is not just the heat or the destruction. It's what they release. Toxic gases, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, methane, arsenic vapor, invisible killers that drift across towns and farmlands. Not explode, smolder. The fires spread quietly under tundra, producing massive plumes of carbon dioxide. They're called zombie fires. Remnants of blazes that never truly die, reigniting each summer. They're the next chapter of the same story, the fire that never sleeps. Fire is humanity's oldest ally, and now its quietest enemy. What we once used to conquer darkness now haunts us from the shadows. The underground infernos remind us that destruction doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums beneath the soil, patient, endless, invisible. There's something almost cosmic in that image, a planet slowly devouring its own fossil heart. The forests of the Carboniferous age turned to coal, now burning back into the atmosphere they once shaped. The circle closes. The earth reclaims what we took. And still, above these burning lands, life goes on. Children laugh. Markets open. People breathe the smoke because they must. Humanity, defiant as ever, building homes on the skin of a sleeping fire. But the truth remains, once the earth begins to burn from within, there is no turning it off. No emergency switch. No mercy. Centralia will keep burning for another 200 years. Jaria perhaps longer. And in every ton of coal still waiting to ignite, there's a prophecy. One that says the line between civilization and catastrophe is just a spark long. We thought we mastered fire, but the earth never forgot who taught us.